Spurs have just finished their fourth friendly of pre-season, and it's ended in a 1-1 draw with Newcastle out in Korea, which happened to be Son's last ever game for the club, which was obviously devastating, but really also a nice way to round off what's been a legendary career at Spurs for him. And he'll always be remembered fondly in my heart, and I'm sure all of your hearts. So I want to talk about obviously how we set up in this game. So if we take a look at the tactics board, I think we saw again that typical 4-2-3-1 that Frank's obviously been wedded to so far, pretty much the most of the time since he's joined, obviously. Um, and the first point I want to point out is that I was expecting maybe us to do that sort of elbow type back four that we've been seeing at times, with Davies as that third centre back and Porro kind of bombing on and really controlling that right flank, with potentially Johnson leaning towards more of a inside forward, being able to get in the box and get more narrow. But we actually saw more of a traditional fullback pairing today, with them quite deep, but on the same line as those midfielders. Neither either kind of bombed on that much, and I think the reason for this is because of how vital Porro's playing out from the back has been for us, and his creative passing from deep. And I think it was evident today how vital Porro is for us, because I think we definitely lent into a more transitional game today, and I think that was probably by design because of the players on the pitch. See, if you look at that attack, I don't see much technical quality there, but what I do see is a lot of athleticism. And so Porro became our sort of Trent-ish light, where he was playing a lot of these kind of passes, either clipping it over the top for Johnson, that really big switch over to Son, even Tel maybe running the channels at time and Porro trying to find him. And I think Porro's passing was excellent in that first half. And so we kind of lent into that more direct style, that transitional style where fine, Porro might play to here, they might head it away, but can we get on the second balls? Can we win the second balls and be really aggressive, really intense? And we really did press high, especially in those first 20-ish minutes. And obviously our goal came from there, where we won the ball high up and Johnson tucked it away. So I think that was obviously by design because of like we've got a lack of quality there in that final third. But what we were able to really put our stamp on the game in terms of with was that physicality, and that was probably part of the reason that we didn't see more of this shape, because we know how good Porro is at playing out from the back, and we really lack that progression in other areas. So it was something like that. In terms of midfield, I really want to touch on Archie Gray. I think Archie Gray was excellent today, and I think that is the kind of midfield performance that we signed him for. And the talent that he has is clear. I think his dueling style is really, really effective. He's got so much balance in terms of when he enters those kind of 1v1 defensive duels in midfield. He's also got those long legs that he's able to wrap around the opposition to kind of nick the ball away from them, something that Sarr also possesses. And so I think Archie Gray, in terms of his out of possession game, was really positive today. And he showed why he's capable of playing in that role. But I think at the moment, he's certainly more of someone that suits that transitional, direct style, rather than what I haven't seen from him is a more controlled midfield performance where he's able to dictate the game. And I'm still hopeful that he can become someone like that. But at the moment, what he kind of really shines in is coverage of the pitch and dueling and being smart in possession. So he's definitely a strong carrier. Decent passer, not amazing yet, but I think a very solid passer. And the same can be said about the other two, to be honest. I think Sarr, again, was absolutely excellent today. And I envisaged Sarr having a massive season under Frank. I knew that he would like him because of the likes of Janelt that we've seen at Brentford, who I think profiles reasonably similar to Sarr in terms of the ability to cover ground and be really good at carrying it on the ball, big open space carrying, and then off the ball being so aggressive, so good at winning the ball back. And we saw so many times today where the ball would be kind of turned over, the opposition would have it here, and he'd be running back from that 10 position, nicking it, and then carrying it really high and laying it off to the front three. And I think both those kind of actions, but also the actions where he's run it really high up, are what you get from Sarr in midfield wherever you play him. And that's why I think they lent towards Sarr in the 10, because he's able to win the ball so high, so energetic. Because we were playing that really sort of high intensity transitional way, you could afford, in a way, I think we still struggled, but could afford to have a less technical player there, but someone who's going to win second balls and be a nuisance out of possession. So we really lent into that out of possession game today. So I think those two really shone. And I think overall our structure out of possession so far this preseason has been excellent. And where we've kind of struggled in my eyes is the more possession side game and creating chances and linking that build up into actual chance creation. And I think for me, a big part of this is lack of personnel, and we'll get onto the Maddison injury because I think that is going to be absolutely brutal for kind of what we need. But I think partly Frank is looking to build foundations at the early phases of his tenure, where he wants to build that really solid out of possession shape, really have the ability to manage games, not be open, keep the games tight, and then I think he'll build the more attacking substance off the back of that. And I think we did see in the second half where we just kind of struggled. The game became very stop and start. We weren't really able to stamp our intensity on the game like we were in the first half, and that kind of negatively affected us. And we saw the deficiencies of having a lack of a technical sort of player base on the pitch. If I quickly touch on Ben Davies, I think he really is struggling, especially in this kind of system where, especially today, we were looking to be so intense, and I think both physically and technically, he's not quite at the level. I think if he's pressed at times, he looks to just clip it long, often inaccurately. I think often if he is pressed and he can't do that, he'll turn and just play backwards. He'll never really get out of trouble like that and play into midfield. And I think he doesn't, there's just nothing much that he offers at this point. I think he's never really making glaring errors, but he's a bit of a passenger, I'd say, at the moment. And that's obviously to be expected. He's really getting on. And especially in such an intense sort of style that we were trying to play today, I think that's never going to suit him. So I think with that, I think you probably do want to see someone like Spence come in at left back, if Porro's playing at right back, or we look at what I've discussed, which is Van der Ven at left back, because I think while he's not necessarily going to be looking to bomb on, he's got better ball playing in these areas because of, I think the way he strikes the ball is much nicer, much cleaner. He's still quite limited in terms of the angles because he's quite stiff in terms of his hip movement, but he can definitely play much more accurate, like down the line passes and things like that. The other person I wanted to quickly touch on before I get on to Maddison is Kinsky. I think again we saw the advantages of having a ball playing goalkeeper today. Newcastle did press aggressively at times, and Newcastle are an aggressive side, and we really coped with that because of Kinsky's ball playing, and Vicario would have probably struggled more. I don't think either of them have been tested much in terms of goalkeeping. I think people have argued that Kinsky was to blame for that goal that Barnes scored today. For me, that was just a great shot, great strike, came off the post. It's obviously the near post, but I wouldn't really expect most keepers to save that. So I don't have anything much else to say about Kinsky apart from the fact that he's been great. And then, yeah, the other thing I quickly forgot to mention is that of course we pressed in that same 4-4-2 shape today, much more aggressively than we did against Arsenal, and I think we lent into Sarr's physicality at number 10 there again, and the ability to win it high. So it's also nice to see that when that press does get bypassed, that we're able to also sit more in this mid block, which we did at times as well, and that's just a really nice thing to notice, that we are able to switch out of possession shapes and out of possession strategies. So I think we can be flexible there. Do it kind of in terms of situation, personnel, etc. And then I want to get on to Maddison and the number 10 position in general, because I think this is a major key to why we're kind of lacking our chance creation. I am going to come out with a video on what number 10s we should target, because I think it's clear it's an emergency now. It should be urgent priority. And that will be out tomorrow, probably afternoon. So make sure you subscribe and put your notifications on for that, because I've got some great kind of ideas, out of the box ideas for people we can target. So definitely keep an eye out for that. But in terms of today and preseason in general, I think our ball playing from the back in the first phase has been pretty strong. We've seen a lot of this kind of solid circulation, especially when there's been both fullbacks on this line. We've had really secure possession in these areas, and we know that Frank is doing that to kind of entice the opposition to come and press. So I think what we've been missing, and this is because Maddison hasn't played and Kulusevski's injured, but is at the times, whether that's pulling out to these sort of half space deep areas, whether can we find Maddison or the number 10 once it's on. So we're circulating, drawing the opposition in. Can we be brave suddenly, break the line, and then Maddison's there, or the 10's there to go and dictate? And I think what Maddison's so great at is he's able to take the ball in the half turn in these deeper areas, but he's also able to affect the game in these higher areas. And so you want a bit of a hybrid there. The main thing for this player for me is the ability to connect the midfield and attack, and whether that means dropping into these areas at times, or whether that means finding space in these areas, which is always limited because it's such a key area of the pitch. So can a player kind of peel off in a slight bit of space, and how are they technically good enough to receive in such limited space and then go and create stuff? And I think that's been a big reason to why we have struggled in terms of progression. The other last thing I kind of wanted to talk about was looking at what we kind of did in the second half, which I think Frank has done at times, is more of a 4-3-3. It wasn't Bentancur, it was Sarr. And this is okay for me, but I think this requires Solanke to be playing. And I'll tell you why that is, because I'm not exactly sure why we switched this is maybe to kind of suit Bergval's introduction. But obviously if you're removing someone from this 10 area, then there's a lot of space there, and how can we progress through the thirds? We need a striker to probably drop deep at times and allow the wingers to be really high and narrow to kind of create stuff, because now we've removed that player from there. How are we meant to get Tel's service? Because for me, I think Tel, of course, he missed that chance. I've actually been there in those situations where you fake the keeper and they don't buy it, and then you're kind of screwed after that because you've limited your angle, you've got closer, the angles are much tighter now to kind of tuck it away. And I wasn't against him doing that, but obviously he had so much time to think about it. I think he kind of closed the angle himself in terms of his approach. But I think in general, I'm not worried about Tel at all. He's 20 years old, and there's so much to like there. His ability to get shots off in tight situations. I think his ball striking is very strong. I think his movement is very good. Today I was actually impressed with more of this kind of thing where his link up was better. I think he's really struggled there, but I think his link play was good today. He's got stronger for sure, or he's definitely using his body better. Obviously that's not his game, so you do want Tel on the last line, but I think he was okay at that today. I think there's a long way to go for Tel, but I'm not worried about him. I think he's a top talent. But like I was saying, in terms of that 4-3-3, yeah, I think you need a striker to then come and help much more. And Solanke is someone that can definitely do that. So if you are going to switch that 4-3-3, I think you need that. Or the other way you can do it is probably have someone like Kudus on the pitch. And if it's Tel staying really high, then you'll get the winger to maybe drift in more and operate in some of those 10 areas to really take some of that creative responsibility on. So that's the 4-3-3. And then apart from that, I just want to touch on Son in general. I think he's been an absolute legend for the club. Someone who, it's hard because with these kind of footballers, they're this level of fame, this level of stardom, especially the fact that he carries a whole country's sort of responsibility on his back, you'd expect someone like that to have some sort of ego, some sort of lack of being down to earth, I guess. And Son has been such a credit to the club. I think obviously you can talk about his on the pitch achievements for days, but I think what for me has been so nice about having Son at the club is someone you're proud of to represent the shirt, someone that just seems like such a nice person. I think I didn't buy any of this. He's not a good captain stuff. I think he's shown that he's an excellent captain, one of our only trophy winning captains. And I think he's just going to always be remembered fondly by me. And so much of that is down to the way he's carried himself. Obviously, we all love great players, but if you can have a great player who's also such a nice person, and it's so clear to see, everyone says it, it's just exactly what you dream of. And for me, he's the biggest Spurs legend in my lifetime, and I don't think it's that close either. So yeah, I wish him all the best, and hopefully we see him at the Lane often this next few years, because he'd always be welcome back, I'm sure. But overall, I think a decent game. A lot to work on in terms of in possession, especially. A lot to do in the transfer market, or not necessarily lots, but key areas that need to be addressed. And overall, I'm pretty confident about this season with Frank. I think the out possession stuff that he's already put in place is so positive. I think it's just about now getting that creative spark, having more sustained chance creation, not through just second balls and athleticism and energy. I think we need, especially against more deeper blocks, settled blocks, we need to be able to create more. But I think all of that will come, so keep an eye out for more videos around that coming up. Please do subscribe as well, because we've got a lot coming. Like I said, the number 10 target video coming out tomorrow, and then much more around matches coming. So please also comment what you'd like to see, because we've got a lot in the tank. So yeah, please do subscribe. Hope you enjoyed the video, and come on, you Spurs.